Welcome to the Beats and Bobbins video tutorial series. This is episode number 1. My name is Evan Roth. I'm a visual artist. I make a lot of different kinds of work. I do painting and photography and video and installation. But this series isn't going to be about any of that. This is going to be focused on the things I do in the studio for fun after hours, primarily related to music making and sewing projects. So what I'm going to talk about today in this first episode is my DJ setup, the one that's taken me a couple years to figure out and refine. It's the DJ setup that I really think for many people might be the best starter DJ set for under $500. One that's not just a starter set, one that you can grow with, hopefully. It's the one that I use. I'm going to be sharing a custom Midi mapping for a very cheap controller that I love. I'm going to talk about, so that download's going to be in the description. Stick around if you're interested in hearing about that, and we're going to dive into it now. One first thing to talk about is who is this DJ setup for, right? There's many different kinds of DJ practices. And so number one, this is for DJs that are not afraid of doing track prep and that are not afraid of the sync button, okay? Sync button, very divisive in DJing. I'm trying to take the approach of really embracing this as what's new in DJing, figuring out how to use these digital DJ tools, and then once you know them, figuring out how to misuse them. So this is really for people that are doing sync button based DJing. It's for DJs that are not afraid of track prep. I've come around to this idea that embrace your track preparation. Your time making beat grids and setting hot cues ahead of time. This is quality one-on-one time with your music. So it's something to be embraced rather than something to fear. So this is not for people that are interested in getting into scratch DJ tutorials. There's other ones, people that can do that much better than I can. This is also for DJs who don't have disposable income, right? I think one of the most exciting things about both the music production side and DJing these days is that there's never been less of a relationship between money and song selection than there is now. It's not about how much vinyl you can afford. And so you can really have an amazing relationship with a digital DJ library. So before we get into the hardware side of things, I wanted to talk for one moment about the software, because this is a pretty big decision to make what piece of software you're going to start your DJ journey on. I will say I don't think it has to be as important as it feels. All of these major DJ software platforms essentially do the same things. The skills that you learn in one are going to translate to the other. So don't let that decision feel like a bigger hurdle than it needs to be. The decision you make now doesn't have to be the software that you die with in your DJ career. I ended up using Traktor for a set of reasons I won't go in now. Traktor it's good. It's the 4th most used by Digital DJ Tips survey. I think one advantage could be for people starting out now that it is cheap and it's not subscription based. I think it might be the only major DJ software at the moment that's not subscription based. So if you buy something from Native Instruments, if you buy a Traktor controller, it's going to come with, it unlocks the full version of Traktor 4 with no other cost needed to buy after that point in terms of software. So that's a huge, huge plus. I started on the Traktor Kontrol S3. I made that decision at the time because I wanted 4 decks. I wanted to have a line fader for each deck, and I wanted a line in, which a lot of cheaper controllers don't have. I like the S3. I still use it. At one point, I extended that with 2 F1s that I put on either side of the S3, and the F1s are probably my favorite piece of DJ gear. They're super cheap. They're $200 new. You can find them used very easily because they've been around since 2012. They haven't been changed for 13 years. So you can find these used online for usually around $100. They came out at the time for stems technology. So you have, each one of these was designed to use for drums, bass, instruments, and vocal. And they were also pushing the remix decks at the time, which didn't fully take on in a major way, but they were a little bit ahead of their time, as was some of other Traktor's gear, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later. But now that stems is real time and it's ubiquitous, these controllers are even more of interest to me now than they would have been back then. So my setup uses these F1s as a deck A and deck B. And obviously we get no jog wheels here, so that's gone. But what we get in return are our line faders for each of our stems, so for drums, bass, instrumentals, and vocals. And we've got these 16 pads, which I'll go over how I'm going to use those. For the mixer in the middle, I'm using the Traktor Kontrol Z1 MK2. This came out relatively recently. It's about $250. You can get the used previous version for $100. Which I recommend actually also if you can find them, because I'm really not using this one for its full functionality. I'm really only using this for the line faders, the crossfader. I'm using it for the main volume. I'm not using it for the stems, which it's kind of designed for. And the reason I don't like using this for stems is after using the F1 decks, I think visually it's much more clear to me. For example, if I'm looking at this deck and I'm playing music and I can see, okay, the drums and the vocals only, right? If I was going to repeat that with the stems separation on the Z1, it would look like this. It's not so difficult, but when I'm in the middle of things and I'm playing, if I look at that, it's much less clear to me what's going on with my music than if I look at this. Here, I know immediately what I'm looking at. And so I love physical visual indicators of what's going on. And this feels like a really great one for stems to me rather than this. So I actually keep my Z1 in regular mode, where this is just my low, mids, and highs and my trim. So the only thing that I've changed in the default settings of the Z1 is I like this to be the play button rather than the effects on off. And I like this to be a shift button. I'll show you that in a second. But if you go into your Traktor settings and you go to your Traktor Z1, here's where you can change your mixer on button to play and your filter button to shift. So I have a track loaded in deck B now. It's one of my own songs. I make music under the name Rotary Farm. So if I hit play, that track's going to start playing. If I want to go back to the original functionality of this being the mixer effects on off, I would hold down the shift, and now I can toggle on and off my filter. You can change what these filters are. I have these set to my filter. This is my delay. I think this one's a flanger. And this is the gator. And those settings you can change here also. If you go into your Traktor settings and you go into mixer, here's where you have slot 1 is filter, delay, flanger, and time gator. And you can actually set these mixer effects to the different decks. So for example, if I wanted deck B to be on a delay and deck A to be on a flanger, I would hold down the shift. So I'm in my mixer effects section now. Number 2 is my delay. So I hold down 2 and tap the button. So now I'm in, this is a delay. And if I want this one to be a flanger, I'm holding down shift. I would go flanger and then hit this one. So now I have delay and flanger on my 2 decks. So that's how that functionality works. So other than that, there's not much for me to go over on the Z1, because again, I'm really just using this as number 1, the audio interface. So it's where my audio is coming out and I have my headphones going in and I can do headphone cueing. That's the main functionality of this. The rest of everything happens on the F1 deck. So I have my F1 deck A and deck B. I'm going to go over how my custom mapping works here. And then after that, I'll show you where the link is to download it and how to install it. So right away, we know that these are our stems. Again, drums, bass, instruments, vocals, very straightforward. The effects are along the top and along the bottom. So these buttons correspond with these knobs. These are all on-offs, and these are your wet-dry, your filter 1, filter 2, and filter 3. And this is your, so effects 1 goes to deck A, effects 2 goes to deck B. So, I can give a quick example. If I'm playing this deck, I'll turn on my filter here. You can see it come on and off in the software. This is, now you can see this is set to my formant filter. This one I have set to an iceberg. And then I like to leave this third one always set to Beat Masher 2, so this is more like something to be performed live where I'm pressing and holding and tweaking the knob. So that's the effects section. The only other thing to note on the effects section is that the filters can be changed with a shift press. So if I press and hold shift and I start turning these knobs, I can change what that filter is. So if I want that to be a delay, I can leave it on delay. And now when I play, this is my delay. The encoder is your track selector. So when I turn the encoder, I can pick which track I want. If I hold down shift and turn the encoder, I can toggle between the favorited playlists that are pinned to the top there and then turn them, and a press down will load the track into the given deck. So that loaded track into deck B. If I do the same on deck A, I can load them that way. The 8 pads at the top, these are going to be your cue points, which should look familiar on almost every deck. So this is cue point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They can be, in Traktor, these could be the blue or a regular cue point, the green or a loop. If I hold down shift and hit them, it'll delete them the same way as it does on most controllers. These 4 pink buttons, they control the tempo. So this will nudge up in small increments or down in small increments. Then on the outside, larger increments up, larger increments down. And then this does the same sort of functionality if I hold down shift for beat jumping. So if I'm playing the song, I hold down shift and I want to jump forward 8 bars, I hit this, or 16 bars. I can go back 16 bars, back 8 bars. So this is tempo or with shift beat jump. The bottom row is your play button, which is also mirrored on the Z1. This is sync, on or off. This is, if this is lit up, this means it's set to, the tempo is set to the master deck. And then this last one toggles on and off the snap and the quantization. There's some added functionality on this row. We've seen shift. The reverse, if you hold reverse and tweak the encoder, now you're affecting the filter, which also could be happening on the Z1. Then on type is your echo. These are 2 filters I use really commonly, so I just set them here. These could be other things. And then holding down size and turning the encoder is going to affect pitch. The top row is going to be our loop scenario. So the quant button is the loop on and off. So if I'm playing and I hit this button, it's going to start a loop based on whatever my loop length was set to. And then the sync and the capture on either side, these either move the loop length up or down. So I'll turn quant to turn that loop off. If I want to set an 8-bar loop, I can toggle this to 8. Wait for the 1 beat. Set my 8-bar loop, and then we're off into an 8-bar loop. And you can change the length as it's going to. I could decrease the size of that. So that's how the loop functionality works. Now, one thing you might notice is different is that it's not doing just a normal loop. I'm going to set this back to 8 bars now. When I hit the loop button, you'll see that it's freezing it there and it's chopping it into 16 segments that it's now looping through. It visually looks a little bit different than the regular loop indicator. So what this means is now I'm in freeze mode. So if I hit the browse button, the 16 pads now turn into these segments, these 16 different segments. If you're coming from Serato, you'll recognize this as slice mode, it's called. Or if you're coming from the MPC machine sampler world, you'll recognize this as chops, like taking a sample and chopping it across 16 pads. But this is deprecated technology. It came out in 2014, but for years it hasn't been a part of any Traktor hardware or software. You can't see it anywhere, but you can unlock it within the Midi mapping controller section, which is what I've done here. And to me, since the stems have become so ubiquitous, this kind of technology gets really interesting all of a sudden, because before, chopping up a song, interesting, yes, but to do it live is difficult to do. It gets muddy really quickly. But if you're dropping out the drums, you're dropping out the bass, maybe you're just applying those chops to the vocals, all of a sudden this becomes useful in a sort of performative scenario again. So I'll give a quick demo of how I use this. So I have on the deck B, I have one of my songs loaded up, Trumpet Break. Just play a second of that. I want to loop this section. So I'm going to go to Q4. I'm going to set 16 bar loop. But now I have that bar, I have that section looping. This is just have something to play over. And I just want to have the drums and the bass. So this loop we have going. On deck A, I have this Shania Wallace song that I found as a vinyl rip on archive.org, which is an amazing place to dig for music. We'll just hear a second of that. Kind of some slowed down chill stuff. I'm going to go, I have a Q.2 set up. I'm going to jump there. I know I want a 32-point loop, so I'm going to set my loop to 32, and I'm going to hit loop. And now if I go over into my freeze mode section and hit play, we can see that these chops have been applied to these pads. Now where I feel like this gets interesting, I think of this as chop cueing. It might have another name, but basically let's take out everything but the vocals. Let's pretend that we're playing in a live scenario where this is playing currently on deck B. And I'm in the headphones listening to what's happening on deck A. So what I might be doing in that scenario is going through these, trying to figure out which ones sound interesting. This is a nice one. This row is nice. This one's nice. So maybe I like these pads here. To be honest, here's some functionality I would love. If I could have a shift scenario where now I'm hitting those cues that I like and they would light up pink or something, now I would know which ones I have. But essentially, let's pretend that in the headphones, I've decided that these are some nice samples. We've got our beat going. Maybe I'll drop out the bass for a second. Then you can also apply filters to it. So like a gator, for example. So to get the gator on this filter, I can switch this. If I want to do the gator only on here, remember I hold down shift. I go to gator and I press that pad. Make sure it's on. So this is how I think of chop cueing. Like we're chopping it over the 16 pads, we're isolating a channel on the stem, and then in the headphones we quickly figure out a pattern that can go with what we're playing on the right track. So this is why I love freeze mode. I'm trying to experiment with it more and more, and it's why it's baked into this MIDI mapping that I've made here. So this combination of features that you have in this really small, compact, portable, modular system, this is my favorite setup. This is what I play with, despite the fact that I have bigger, larger, more expensive gear at home also. Okay, one bug I have to mention, Native Instruments, this is for you. This is a bug that came in the version 4 of Traktor. I wish it would get fixed, but I'm worried it might not be since it's connected to a deprecated technology. But I want to point it out to everybody watching so you don't get super frustrated. If you're using Traktor 3, this won't happen. But if you're using Traktor 4, there's a freeze mode bug, and let's take a quick look at it. On deck B, let's go back to our loop I was playing here. I'm gonna let's just set an 8-bar loop here. If I hit play now, it's going to loop fine. Let's listen. If I go to chops, I can see it's working fine. Now, as soon as I hit a pad, watch what happens at the end of the 16 marker here. You see how it added that extra section to the loop? I have no idea why this happens, but now listen to what's happening. It's off. You can fix this if you're in the mix by quickly toggling up and down the loop length. So if I go, now I'm in an 8-bar loop, if I quickly go to 16 and then back to 8, now my loop is fixed, but obviously this is not an ideal scenario. So there is this bug. Hopefully by the time you're watching this video, that bug has been fixed. Native Instruments, please fix this one. So now I want to show you how to install this. It's relatively simple. You're going to need two .tsi files, and you get those by downloading them from the links that are listed in the YouTube description. Then download those to your computer, open up Traktor settings, go to Controller Manager, hit Add, then Import from Disk, and then go find those .tsi files. So I have them listed here. There's one for the left and one for the right. You're going to hit Open. When you do that, they're going to show up in this device drop-down menu. Go ahead and click those. So I'm going to click left. And then here's the thing to make sure. On your import, you should see your two controllers. So set one to the first one, then go to your right, and set the second F1 to your other one. Something to be careful of here is anything you have listed in this device manager listing is going to be on unless it says none. So if you see anything listed as for example, a default F1 listing, just go to those and make sure everything is none. If it's none, it's just going to be totally bypassed. It's as if it's not even installed. So what you want is the only thing you have listed for your F1s is these F1 deck 1 and left and right. So you have these loaded up. Once those are loaded up, you can see everything in here. If you want to make changes, the settings are in here to do that. And you hit close. Sometimes it's helpful after making that setting to sort of unplug and replug back in your decks. But when you do that, you should see them load up, not to the default setting with the 4 corners, but the setting that you kind of see here. And then you should be able to have this deck scenario up and running. So old school Traktor users are probably preparing comments right now. Isn't this just the Kontrol D2? And the answer is pretty much yes. I'm mimicking in this scenario for much cheaper a lot of what used to be possible in the Traktor D2 controller, which was discontinued in 2018. I think that controller was ahead of its time. It was designed for stems before stems were as readily available as they are now. You can find them used for $250 around there. So a lot of what I'm doing here exists in this old D2 deck. You have the same sort of effects controls. You have the same line faders, which I love for the stems control. On the D2, you only have 4 pads versus the 16, which I do like having the 16 pads when I'm doing this chop queuing system, but the D2 also has a screen, which is really nice, and it also has a touch bar, which is nice. So the D2 is a piece of gear I would love to get my hands on, and if you like this setup, you might also like that setup. This modular approach to DJ gear, this is nothing particularly new, but it does seem to be an interest at the moment, at least from Native Instruments standpoint, but also from Reloop. This is the Mixtour Pro, which is a relatively new piece of equipment. Also super interesting. I've been having a great time with this recently. I'm curious to try this with the F1s to see how that might work, especially with Algorithms DJ Pro, which is really interesting piece of software. I'll probably do some tutorials on in the future. And this is what I came up with for what I think for me is my favorite DJ setup for under $500. If you buy this equipment used and you get the previous version of the Z1, you can get all this for $300. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching this first episode of the Beats and Bobbins tutorial series that I'm going to be running. If you have thoughts on other modular DJ setups or ways to improve this setup, ways to improve the F1 mapping that I have for download, please leave those in the comments. Get in touch. Thanks so much for watching this first episode of Beats and Bobbins. I'll be back with more tutorials in future episodes.